The thin deadline is an interesting exercise in thematic structure here at the end of the 4-episode Grey Angel arc. In a similar fashion to Are You Now or Have You Ever, the episode uses some fun metaphorical connections that make it heavy with opportunities for social and cultural commentary. Unlike Are You Now, though, any perspective deadline might have had negates itself by the end of the episode, making all of its volatile subject matter feel like little more than a backdrop for some team drama, Night of the Living Dead style shenanigans, and a classic Angel backspin kick. But I guess I like all of those things, so you know.
I'd still, if you'd still.
The greater scheme, the big picture. Nothing matters.
Wesley, Wyndam-Pryce.
Forever. I'm better than anyone.
There's a lot worse things out there than suicide.
It doesn't work in spite of you. Nothing we do works with us.
Why is it that I'm not on the floor this time?
Take all that matters is what we do.
Angel returns to the Hyperion after happy anniversarying with Lorne, and the emptiness of his current predicament is starting to get to him.
Good.
He hits up Merle for more info on Wolfram and Hart happenings, and Merle probes Angel's self-inflicted wound.
How is old Wesley, huh?
Team investigations are bemoaning not having business when in walks a mother and her daughter with an eye on the back of her head. Across town, two kids are chased to Anne's shelter by something late at night. After Anne breaks the curfew rules and lets them in, we see the bad they're afraid of is a police officer. Anne brings the recent string of police terror to team investigations, and Gunn comes to the shelter to listen to their stories. He decides the best thing to do is go for a walk with a camcorder to see if he can induce the same behavior. Outside, Angel is attacked by a cop, and he backspin kicks the cop's head off.
Top that!
And, unless the zombie cop's head was barely attached for various and sundry zombie-related reasons, it seems to me there would be no appreciable difference in the force required to kick a zombie head off versus kicking an actual human being's head off. So, I guess Angel got lucky that was actually a zombie? Angel checks with Kate, and it turns out the headless cop in question died 6 months before. Cordy and Wes go to the shelter to assist Gunn, and Jackson slips in on their heels to terrorize some of the sheltered. Wes gets shot trying to help out, the zombie cops kill his ambulance driver, and Gunn races everyone to the shelter. I'm not entirely sure why Gunn drives injured Wes to the shelter rather than a hospital or another precinct, or to his well-armed Lost Boys, or anywhere else. And a minute after arriving, the MT still alive says they needed to go to the hospital. The real answer is, of course, so that we can have a Night of the Living Dead style standoff. As good a reason as any, I guess. The police commander aims his zombie precinct at the shelter. Team Investigations -1 holds off the Zops, and Angel saves the shelter by attacking the commander who zombified his dead men to begin with. Angel goes to visit Kate so that the episode can do some absurd fence straddling, and just in case we might have had some hope that Angel has turned a corner because he spent an evening with Lorne and helped the shelter, the episode adds an extra scene to show us that no, he's still going through a smirky mean jerk phase. At least we get some solid Cordy 2 out of it, though.
You walked away. Do us a favor and just stay away.
The thin deadline is entertaining enough. Insofar as Buffy vs. Zombie episodes go, it probably feels the most similar to the horror material that it's aping. The Last Stand at the Shelter, a staple of the subgenre, is pretty tense. Some of the cinematography is nicely atmospheric, with an it's scarier not to show the shark approach. A handful of touches evoke 80s grindhouse horror films that used to scare the pants off me as a kid. Angel the series' makeup design is always pretty stellar, and that eyeball thing is awesome. Given the supernatural take on the bad cop motif, I love that the episode's writer Shawn Ryan, after one more writing credit with Belonging, went on to create the TV series The Chicago Code, SWAT, and most famously in the bad cop genre, The Shield. There's a nice focus on team investigations in this one, for the most part sidelining smirky, petulant, backspin, kicky, top-that-angel to being B-story muscle. The harsh education of Wesley Wyndam-Pryce continues. As much as I wasn't a fan, I'm sometimes not sure how I feel about the go-to way of evolving bumbly, naive Buffy watcher Wesley, being the show enacting acts of penetrating violence against him. It feels a little like watching a puppy get kicked. But the member of the AI trio that gets the most focus in this one is Mr. Charles Gunn. Thin Deadline sets up what will be one of the driving thrusts for his arc in the series, the constant push and pull between his old life and identity with the Lost Boys versus his work and sense of otherdom with Team Angel.
He's a great guy with a really fly street tag.
What's he fly?
I like the connection that Gunn and Anne knew each other before Angel came to LA. It heightens the sense of an interconnected Buffyverse in a really nice way. We've seen in previous episodes that Gunn is known and networked within his community, and the conversations between Anne and Gunn work well enough, given at this point they are developed characters. The conversations with the rest of the shelter denizens are a different story. I realized watching this time that a number of episodes dealing with Gunn's life outside of team investigations remind me a bit of initiative-centric scenes from Buffy Season 4. Authenticity is a challenging thing to quantify. I am not in the military, couldn't tell you the first thing about how to strip a rifle or what proper etiquette is for missions. However, I watched Season 4 of Buffy and experience a constant sense that every military scene was written and directed by people who don't know those things either, and are instead trading mostly on tropes and cliches they're already familiar with. There's a constant undercurrent of falseness. Authenticity is a bit like CGI in that it is commonly considered at its best when it is seamless and invisible, but I can live with a dated special effect when it is in the service of good storytelling. It takes me 3 seconds to let go of the awkwardness of CGI Snake Mayor and to just enjoy the epicness of Buffy's 3rd season finale, because the season and its characters earned my emotional investment. The green screen compositing in Fear itself might be achingly obvious, but I couldn't care less, because the brilliant reveal of Gaknar the Fear Demon being an inch tall is just too delightful not to enjoy.
Who's a little fear demon?
Likewise, the use of tropes and cliché are not inherently bad, depending on how they're used in the story. In fact, the Buffyverse is founded upon them. Buffy herself is a subversion of a dumb blonde horror movie cliché. The Scoobies are built from high school tropes: the nerd, the geek, the mean girl, the emo crush, the bad boy. But the show then took all of those tired and familiar starting points and developed something interesting from them. That never quite came to fruition with the clunky initiative, and it rarely tends to when revisiting Gunn's life pre-team investigations. Most of the dialogue in the shelter just feels assembled from cliches and stereotypes intended to do little more than provide a backdrop for scenes that get our heroes from event A to event B. But I think the reason the thin deadline feels more frustrating to me than the initiative episodes is that its story is seasoned with volatile social issues that are deeply relevant to this day. I do appreciate the handful of nods the episode gives to issues of discrimination and privilege, as in when Anne doesn't realize why Gunn's plan to walk around town at night with his friends will incite the police to harass.
Because we'll be the ones walking while black.
Or Gunn's knowing response after Wesley says of the cop that shot him,
He had no right.
No, man.
The episode's title is also a reference to the thin blue line, a term referring to the blue-clad American police as the line keeping the country from descending into violent chaos. It is an idea Errol Morris used, ironically, for the name of his 1988 documentary about a man who was wrongly framed for murdering a police officer. That's all well and good. The problem is in the episode's use of 2 things: Jackson and Kate. First of all, Early Angel sometimes has this knee-jerk tendency to reach for what feels like unsubtle and unnecessary levels of top-shelf darkness, perhaps out of a desire to readily distinguish itself from Buffy as the more adult contemporary, as in, say, Nazi racial purity demons, Holocaust imagery, or pedophilic torture vampires. Jackson is bad guy shorthand cut from the same school of thought. In his first 2 scenes, he is immediately established as both a rapist and a murderer, which is fine in and of itself. The problem is that Jackson ends up being used as one of the explanations in the story for why racism and systemic discrimination by the police exists. And in order to make that a little less obnoxious, the script from a very white writer's room has Gunn deliver the observation.
They're a bunch of racist pigs. Well, there's that. And there's people like you. A thug with a gun, keeping the cycle going.
Both Jackson and Kate feel like inclusions made for the purposes of not offending anyone, but Kate's contribution is the most hilariously stupid when she shares with Angel the crime statistics from the zombie cop neighborhood before it got zombie copped.
Up until 3 months ago, there was a murder every 2 weeks, a rape every 2 days, a robbery every hour and a half. And that's what we just give back to the people of that community.
So is Kate coming out as pro-zombie cops? And through metaphor, pro-extreme police brutality? Whatever it is, the net result of the episode's equivocating and playing all sides of its included social issues is that it has nothing to actually say about any of them. There is no perspective in any of this. Crime is bad, poverty is bad, racism is bad, police brutality is bad, zombie cops are bad.
Isn't there anything that we can do about that?
No, there isn't.
It's too bad.
Sorry, Wesley. Damn!
By never picking a lane or a focus, all of this is just once again backdrop material, albeit a little more intricate for what the episode is actually doing, making a fun, metaphorical comparison to Angel's current arc. It's a story about police, intended protectors of the innocent, now undead, and enforcing a war they consider justified through violent and brutal means. Sound familiar?
Someone has to fight the war.
Police are just terrorizing them.
The episode climaxes with the police commander trapping people in the shelter and letting his minions kill all of them. Because, you know, there are probably mostly baddies inside. Innocent people may be among them, but you know.
Somehow, I just can't seem to care.
For the record, that is the episode making what Angel did in the wine cellar clear. If you believe that Angel locking the doors on the Wolfram and Hart lawyers and their family members was fine, I'm assuming you're in the pro-zombie cops camp this episode then, and Cordy, Wes, Gunn, and Ann are all just in the wrong place at the wrong time? After all, Jackson's in there.
And that's what we just give back to the people of that community.
I do like the structure, as with tossing the blood money on the table in front of Anne, Angel telling Kate that he would always make the decision to erase the thin deadline.
I can live with that.
Despite its direct reflections of his own actions, is evidence of his character arc actually arcing. It's just, boy, did we have to endure some muddy and bad-tasting theme soup stupid to get there. And it ends up feeling like a missed opportunity because the zombie genre itself has roots in racial commentary. George Romero's classic Night of the Living Dead is about a black man named Ben in a house full of white people being the only one to survive the night of a zombie apocalypse before he's shot the next morning by a white sheriff. Romero has said he didn't intend for the film to be racial commentary, but be that as it may, it's there. Still, at a bare minimum, I think the only thing any episode of either show owes us, the audience, is an entertaining 40 minutes. And then Deadline is that. There is an element to these videos that is in part reactionary. I never did a complete critical rewatch of Angel and Buffy before I started doing this series, and I don't do a lot of outlining in advance for the season arcs, instead writing the essays as we hit each episode. And while that means that I do some course correcting along the way for ideas I threw out in videos past, the nice part is that I get to be surprised. And while the 4-episode run that starts with redefinition and ends with the thin deadline still feels like hitting a giant pause, or at least slow-mo button on the super compelling bits of this season arc that I love, I've still had more fun on this run-through of it than I thought I was going to. Redefinition was silly nonsense, but at least it's hot silly nonsense.
Do it at the same time? Sploosh.
Blood Money's noir cowboy demon caper mashup made for some interesting ideas. Happy Anniversary is a single episode series low point for me, but at least we get some prolonged Lorne, and the thin deadline is somewhere in the middle. A bit dry and burdened by some of Angel's dated issues, but entertaining. Certainly this run of 4 is a lot more fun for me than the dreary trilogy is in Buffy Season 5. But without a doubt, my favorite thing about the thin deadline is that Reprise is next.